Good afternoon, everybody. The next 30 minutes, the floor is mine. Actually, it's ours. I'm not going to try to convince you of anything these next 30 minutes. Just want to share some experiences, some thoughts, some eye-openers I had during my last 2.5, almost 3 years working with anthropologists, which is quite new to an engineer. My story is about an individual trying to change a large organization, just a little. So for you to understand what I'm talking about, it might be useful to know who I am, what organization I'm working for, to understand the experiences I'm going to share with you in the next, hopefully, 20 minutes. So that would leave 10 minutes for questions, small discussion, a fight, I don't know. It's going to be quite a random order, so try to bear with me. I'll click the eye-openers on the overhead, so if you lose track, at the end all the eye-openers will be on the screen, so you can hook up again. So, who am I? Well, this is me, at least the upper left and the lower right. I'm Peter Post, just turned 50 a couple of weeks ago. I got 2 daughters, aged 11 and 14, and we celebrated, the 3 of us, my 50th birthday for a long weekend in Berlin. You can see the Fernsehturm in the background, the picture of my girls. I live in the center of the Netherlands, in a little city called Rhenen, and up till a couple of years ago, I was a passionate singer in an 80s rock cover band. I'm still very passionate about music, but unfortunately, I'm in between bands at the moment. So now you know a little bit about me. What did you study? What is engineering? I did mechanical engineering at the University of Twente. On the upper left, that's typically mechanical engineering. Matt will be able to explain exactly what that is, being also a mechanical engineer. I did my thesis on design and engineering. The graph on the lower left is actually the most important graph during my academic training. It took me 6 years to understand it. I can explain it in 6 minutes, but I can talk about it the entire day. I won't. It's about the red line in this graph is sort of a division between the design phase of a product or a service and the engineering, production, and maintenance. These are 2 very different types of work. Designing is balancing all the interests surrounding your product or service, reaching the highest total value. On the right side of the red line, it's just do as you're told, engineer it, produce it, and maintain it. Actually, people who like working on the left are different people to working on the right. The left-hand side of this graph is a very highly iterative, unpredictable process, going back and forth all the time, not knowing what tomorrow will bring, because everything is about assumptions on the left side. And tomorrow you'll realize the assumption was wrong, so you have to go back again. You have to be a certain kind of person to like that. On the right side, it's quite linear, just do as we're told, do what we agree to. After my graduation in Twente, I started working at DAF Trucks, not DAF, just DAF. No, DAF Trucks. The department I was working for was product development, which had the task to optimize the highest DAF value. So what I personally had to do was get a stylist who modeled the dashboard and a service mechanic to agree upon a certain type of design. And trust me, a designer, a stylist, and a service mechanic do not use the same language. So product development, the department I was working for, had to build a bridge between both departments within DAF to reach what we do on the left, highest total value. After DAF, I worked at Dutch Railways, don't mention it, and now I'm working for Alliander. What is Alliander? Who is Alliander? Some statistics. We're a grid operator in the Netherlands, serving about a third of the country. We do not sell or buy energy, we just distribute it. We're publicly owned, so municipalities and provinces are our shareholders. We got 6 million connections, but every household has more or less 2 connections, so 3 million households depend on the things we do. And to do that, we have 90,000 kilometers of electricity cable and 40,000 kilometers of gas pipe, which is quite a lot. Some characteristics about Alliander: it's reactive, it's conservative, it's risk avoidant, which was fine up until a few years ago, because the whole energy system runs like clockwork in the way on the right side of the graph I showed you earlier. Everybody knows what he's doing, so we just do what has been agreed upon. We are strictly held by law, regulation, codes, whatever, but we all know that they are abundant. Just like I am, the whole of Alliander sort of is technically oriented. And we have been working, as said before, on the right side of the graph for the last 20 or 30 years. But now what happens? Energy transition comes along. So all sorts of new techniques are entering the energy system. Solar panels, wind power, batteries, but also new stakeholders. All new parties are getting a role in the energy system. In previous years, everybody working in the energy system knew what it was all about. So they knew what they were doing. New parties don't. They just do what they want to do. Well, that wasn't agreed upon. So with new technology, knowing that the law and regulation is obsolete, and new parties involved, we have to redesign the energy system to search for a new balance between all those new interests and expectations. But unfortunately, energy technicians aren't very good in finding out what the true expectations are of parties, of people. So, my opinion was, we need social science. But I was, at first hand, I was quite alone in that. At least I thought. Just to give you a little background to listen to my experience in the people years. To my opinion, the energy system needs left side people. We need to build bridges between Alliander, for instance, and the stakeholders in the energy system, to the customers, to people, to whoever. Building bridges between new worlds that don't know each other takes left side people as well. Because the energy world has been running like clockwork in the last few decades, it lacks left side people. Because it's a production organization, we do what we do, and we do it well. Anthropologists might help us understand what the outside world really expects or really wants, because we technicians haven't got a clue. We think we do, but we don't. So, So far for the introduction. We need to build bridges. We need to be curious into what drives people. The left side people on the graph, I thought, hey, there aren't any. At least I didn't know them. Until I went to a conference in 2015, and it was tech-filled again. It was a conference about energy transition. And one of the examples presented there is, well, wait a minute, if we give people this smart device, they will change the moment they do their laundry to a moment that suits the energy world. And we sell them this device and they will be happy. I thought, no. I will personally not change my laundry routine because it fits the energy system. I do my laundry routine when it fits my daily schedule and the hamper is full. So I got a little annoyed during this conference, and on my way out I met Manon Jansen. I didn't know her at that time, but she's quite an important figure in the energy world. And we got talking. She asked, well, what do you think? Well, I said, well, way too technology-driven again. She totally agreed. So we got talking, and she said, well, we need way more social science or human interest views in the energy world. So I thought, hey, I'm not crazy. There's another one, way more important than me, who thinks the same way. A few weeks later, I talked to Gerriette Molling, a colleague of mine, who was just starting the People the project. And I connected in my head the project Gerriette was starting, the things I thought, and the things Manon Jansen said. And we came to the conclusion, you see, we're not crazy, the rest is. But we have to talk to each other every now and then to keep convincing ourselves that we are not the crazy ones, we're just the odd ones out. Because the left side people in the energy world are the odd ones out, and they need each other to support each other. So within this energy bubble, there are odd ones out that have to help each other. Let me see where I am. Oh yeah, academia and industry, because that's one of the things we need, as stated before. We need the social science, anthropology view. That means that academia and industry have to learn to understand each other, speak each other's languages. I thought that the university working with industry was quite common, because the university I studied in Twente, in the late 80s, early 90s, was already working with industry, because they got extra money to do research, but it also made their work, their research, their added value more visible. So my frame of reference was, hey, universities do that. Well, they don't. So what I experienced is that it takes, I thought the biggest change would be on the industry side, but going along, we kind of concluded, wait, the academic world has to change as well. They have to be looking to the outside world and trying to connect to the outside world. And that kind of takes a lot of effort. Our experience is that you have the academic world on one side, talking their language, the industry side on the other hand, talking their language. They don't understand each other, just like the stylist and the mechanical of the service mechanic at DAF. And we needed to build a bridge, and we needed 3 people to build that bridge at the beginning. Marije Prins, she's the project manager within Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam. She understood the academic world. She knew general industry as well. She knew anthropology, because she's an anthropologist. On the right-hand side, it was me. I understood Alliander. I'm a technician myself, so my colleagues more or less understood me. Not all of them. But I couldn't talk to Marije. Yeah, I could talk to her. But we didn't understand each other by definition. We needed Henriette Molling to complete the bridge, because Henriette is anthropologist herself, so she could connect to Marije. She could connect to me as well, because we were both working at Alliander. And I hear you think, yeah, well, couldn't you be skipped and Henriette talk to the Alliander people directly? No, apparently she couldn't, because she was not a credible source of information, because she's not a technician. Henriette is an anthropologist, so my technical colleagues said, you're preaching to your own people. So we needed this bridge. And be aware, it always takes several people to build these bridges. And it takes the odd ones out in the different worlds. So if you have the little cluster of odd ones out in your own world, and you want to connect to the other world you don't know, that's the difficult part. How do you find the odd ones out in the other world? And once you have them, then you have the starting point of the bridge, and you have to figure out how to make the bridge work. And one was sort of struck me like lightning. Sometimes there already is a bridge. You just don't know it. This is what happened. January 2018. I attended a workshop hosted by the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam, explaining to me and a couple of colleagues what anthropology really is. And they used an example that I knew. They said, well, you know ergonomics? Yeah, sure. Ergonomics is a well-respected field of expertise within mechanical engineering. How do people use products? Especially with DAF, for instance, a driver stays in his cabin for multiple days, sometimes even 2 weeks, and DAF always wanted to know what a driver wants, expects, etc. from the truck. And we call that ergonomics, which is fairly reasonable for all technicians. And in this workshop they said, well, ergonomics, you know it? It's anthropology, actually. What? So, at a sudden, I had this bridge in my head that I already wasn't aware of, but it also made it possible for myself to talk to my colleagues in their technical language about anthropology. Well, don't call it anthropology. Just start off with, hey, you know ergonomics? Yeah, sure. Blah, 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 useful, yeah. Well, it's actually anthropology. Oh? And that's the way you can build those bridges and get them interested, get the curiosity going. Okay. Am I running out of time, or am I doing stupid things? No? Okay. So these are actually the most eye-openers during the last 2.5 years. The next 2 months, there will be 2 major events at Alliander, where I hope and expect the people tree to grow even bigger within Alliander. The end of this month, the Dutch team will present their anthropological fieldwork to colleagues of mine. And 2 months later, we will be doing a department day with my colleagues, and we will be guided on that day by the anthropologists of the Vrije Universiteit to show my colleagues what an anthropological view on the energy world or the energy transition can bring. And I hope my colleagues will get the same eye-openers, or as many eye-openers as I have. and let this be the first step in a giant change. Thank you.